Hey everyone. So I've dug deeper into Amazon's latest earnings results and I found out why the stock price fell after initially jumping higher. I'm going to share that with you in this video and I'm going to discuss a little bit deeper what happened in Amazon's earnings call and what's going on with Amazon stock. So let's begin, right? So typically what happens, a company reports earnings, there's an earnings release that comes out, right about after the market closes between 1 p.m. and 1:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And then after that, the company holds an earnings conference call where management discusses what happened in the quarter with Wall Street analysts. And in that discussion, the company reveals a little bit more than it did in the earnings press release. So sometimes you'll have, like what happened with Amazon stock, where initially the company released the earnings report and the stock reacted positively and increased several percent after the earnings release came out. And then when the company held the earnings call, the stock price fell significantly, giving up all of the gains from the press release. So in this video, I found why that happened, okay? And I'm going to share that with you in this video. So starting off in the earnings call, the CFO says net sales were 127.4 billion. This was up 9% year over year, and that was above the top end of our guidance range. So, in other words, this was better than what we expected. The easing macroeconomic pressures in Europe helped the international business significantly, right? That segment was pressured because of the impacts from two major macroeconomic factors. Number one, inflationary pressure is taking longer to ease in Europe. And number two, the Russian invasion in Ukraine has brought down consumer spending, brought down consumer confidence. So that's been easing and that helped Amazon in the quarter. All good news, right? And this was in the press release. So this is what the stock was reacting to positively. Uh, Amazon saw moderated spending on discretionary categories as well as shifts to lower priced items. So consumers are trading down, buying less pricey, less, you could say, going from the premium brand to the store brand product. And that helps Amazon because Amazon has a lot of Amazon branded products, right? Amazon owned brands where it generates a higher margin because it's its own brand. It doesn't sell third party brands. Advertising services revenue jumped 23% year over year, and this was very good. Overall, the advertising industry in the first quarter spending fell 7 to 8%. Amazon's ad revenue jumped 23%, so that was really good news. But this was also in the press release. So this is, the things you're seeing up until this point were all in the press release and explained why the stock reacted so positively initially right after the release. Here's where we get to the part that was not in the press release. So let's pay close attention to this part here. So net sales of AWS were 21.4 billion in the first quarter. This was up 16% year over year. This was in the report, right? And this AWS, keep in mind, is Amazon's most important segment. It's the segment that drives over 100% of the company's operating income. If you exclude AWS, the rest of the company loses money on the bottom line. AWS makes money, so it's vitally important for Amazon. And the 16% year over year growth was a major slowdown from the previous quarter where the segment grew at nearly 20 in the high 20%, and that's been coming down. So this has been concerning for investors and is the major reason why Amazon's stock price is down significantly off its highs. So as the CFO is explaining, customers of all sizes in all industries continue to look for cost savings across their businesses. So this is what's causing AWS revenue to decelerate, is their clients are looking to save money, and AWS spending is somewhere where they can reduce their spending, and they are reducing that spending. And so that's hurting Amazon. But here's the part that was, so that part was in its earnings release. That was in there. Here's the part that was not in the earnings release and what caused the stock price to fall after initially jumping, in my opinion, right? Here's what is the big bad news here. The CFO saying April revenue growth rates are about 500 basis points lower than what we saw in the first quarter. April revenue growth rates 500 basis points below in Q1. Now, why is that important? April is not included in Amazon's first quarter earnings release. April's not included in there. That's January to March. But right now, the company gave an update into so far what's going on in the second quarter by disclosing what's going on in April, right? April is part of Amazon's second quarter. And what management is telling you about April is that revenue growth rates in AWS are 500 basis points lower than in Q1. That means 11%. So revenue growth in AWS falling from 16% to 11%. 11%. That's a huge slowdown from it's been nearly 2-3 years where AWS has been growing at close to 30%. Now you're talking one third that rate at just 11% in April. And that's just in April, right? There's no telling if in May it will fall even lower, and then in June even lower than that. So it's just on this steady downward trend, and April worsened that downward trend. And this is Amazon's most important segment. This is where the vast majority of Amazon's operating income comes from. So a drop in this segment of this degree with continued downward momentum really raises the risk of investing in Amazon stock. And as I've said many times on this channel, whenever risk goes up, stock price goes down. Risk and stock price are inversely related. When a company discloses something or does something that increases the riskiness of investment, that causes the stock price to come down. And this is a significant increase in riskiness of investing in Amazon stock. So I hope that answers, if you were following Amazon stock after earnings and you saw it jump initially after hours and then a big price drop afterwards, and you're asking yourself, what in the world is going on here? The earnings came out and the stock price was higher, and then the stock price fell. I hope this explains what happened with Amazon stock. This disclosure that was not in the earnings release discussing April revenue slowdown in AWS was the primary reason that Amazon stock had that big reversal after hours, and why it's been trending downward since the earnings came out. All right, so that's all I've got for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I've got a lot more like this. This is what I do on this channel. Please subscribe if you would like more of what. I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now.